Hi Founder fans, Jason here, and today's founder is Nathan Dane. Now I did make a video about Nathan Dane once before, but that was almost a year ago when I first started the channel, and my videos weren't great back then, plus I only had like 5 subscribers, so no one saw it. So we're going to give Dane a second chance today, and it's important we do because he was a very low-key, instrumental person in founding the legal system of the United States. So let's get into it. Nathan Dane, he came from a Massachusetts farming family and was not expected to rise too high in the ranks, but he was a very intelligent young man and secured admission to Harvard University. He studied law, became good at law, and started a law practice, and very quickly, as a very young man, was elected to the Massachusetts State Assembly. And this was in 1782, just after the Battle of Yorktown. Well, about a year after the Battle of Yorktown. Now, he missed a good portion of the founding, but don't hold that against him, because this is about the same time James Madison is going to the Continental Congress and making a name for himself, so keep that in mind. So Dane is there for 3 years, and while he's there, probably his most important piece of legislation was the Continental Congress's most important piece of legislation, which was the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. It did a lot of things. It organized the territories, which were future states in the northwestern United States, and it started the process of how a territory could become a state that actually carried over, for the most part, under the Constitution. It was how we were admitting states until Hawaii and Alaska a century and a half later, more than a century and a half later. So it's a very important piece of legislation he was involved with, but his most important part was Article 6, which abolished slavery in the Northwest Territories. And this is important for several reasons. First of all, it's really the reason at least half of the North ended up being not slave states before the Civil War. But also, it's important because it's a way to look at how they viewed slavery at the time. You would think that the southern states would be, no, we're going to have slaves there, because that's what would happen later after the cotton gin was invented in many of the other states, famously the Missouri Compromise of 1820 under President James Monroe. But here, 30 years earlier, the cotton gin had not been invented, and in many fashions, people thought that slavery was a dying institution. It was a necessary evil that most of the founders didn't like. They were just amiss at how to get rid of it. But it was starting to be more costly than just running a business and not owning human beings. And that's one of the major reasons that it was okay for the Northwest Territory to abolish slavery. Also, since slaves would have been hard to transport to the Northwest, many people would have possibly started attacking Native Americans and attempting to enslave them, because they're out on the frontier and there'd be very little government control or any control over what was happening. That would lead to wars with the Native Americans, which wanted to be avoided, though 1787 was about when the Northwest Indian War was breaking out in that area anyway. That doesn't matter. The important part is Nathan Dane put through some of the most important anti-slavery legislation until Abraham Lincoln. Now, Dane also, while he was serving in the Continental Congress, was talking to some of his friends and had some complaints about what was going on. So some of his friends said, hey, why don't we all get together and make some changes? And Dane is the one who went on the floor of the Continental Congress and motioned to have a committee come together, or a convention held in Philadelphia, to revise the Articles of Confederation. Now, this meeting that he so recommended ended up being the Constitutional Convention. So yeah, that's pretty significant. Dane went back to Massachusetts and really didn't do anything on the national stage for the next 15-20 years until he started writing some legal books. And he wrote a series which I believe was a massive 9 volumes. Yes, 9 volumes of American law. And it was called A General Abridgment and Digest of American Law. And essentially, it went through all of the laws in America, not just in the states, but in the federal government. And it became the go-to legal guide for all lawyers throughout the United States. In every state, it was the go-to guide. Every student had to buy it. It was on every shelf in every law firm in the country. And books were expensive back then, and a 9-volume set of books was very expensive. So Nathan Dane made a fortune selling the laws of America. And because of this, he had enough money where he went back to his alma mater, Harvard Law, and helped start Harvard Law School. He donated massive amounts of his fortune to start Harvard Law School, which, like it or not, has had a tremendous effect on the laws and the lawmakers of the United States for the last 200 plus years. Now, closing in on the end of his life, Dane had always been a Federalist. He was the one who recommended the Constitutional Convention. He liked a stronger, powerful central government, as many did at the time. And while this was going on, eventually the Federalists started losing elections. And for many years they lost elections through Jefferson and James Madison until there was a meeting called the Hartford Convention. Now, because he was a Federalist, but Dane had always been viewed as more of a moderate than anything else. And because of this, when the Hartford Convention was called, which the Hartford Convention doesn't end so well, they basically just recommend some changes to the U.S. government, but they were accused of wanting to secede from the Union just while the War of 1812 was going on, and their timing was poor because the war was won right when their stuff came out, and it didn't look very good. But Nathan Dane, being viewed as a moderate and an elder statesman having 30 years gone by, he was sent to the Hartford Convention as a reasonable force to make sure no one actually said we should cede. Although the convention was accused of saying that, no one ever, they didn't actually recommend that. There was one or two people who said it on the side, but Dane was there because people were saying it on the side to make sure no one actually said it. So that's the life of Nathan Dane. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit longer than most, but Nathan Dane's an amazing character who just is totally overlooked. He is considered the father of American jurisprudence, because he has such a profound effect on the laws themselves of the United States. Not how they were made, but the understanding of the laws and the study of the laws and the interpretation of the laws of the United States. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely hit like on your way out. If you're new here, please subscribe. I put out videos 5 days a week, many just like this. This Wednesday, as every Wednesday, we do a live video, and this one is the 1-year anniversary of Founder of the Day, the YouTube channel. So thank you everyone who watches, everyone who will watch, and everyone who has watched and stopped. So thank you for not watching this. Anyway, I'll be back to you with another Founder tomorrow.